Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of the Monsters Den. My guest co-host tonight is Anguirus from Toho Films, Varan, and Baragon.
And Rich Catino is doing the filming on Monster Island.
There you go. So tonight, everyone, this is all about giant monster films. So got to have some giant monster films, because this show was originally conceived to mainly be a show about giant monsters and monsters in general. And Rich and I are both big fans of all things huge monsters, whether it be the Japanese Toho monsters, Godzilla, Anguirus, Ghidorah,
Right.
Rodan, could be the Gamera films. We love King Kong and the 50s sci-fi giant insects and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Tarantula, them.
That's right.
All those are cool.
All those are great, mandatory viewing. So, in addition to watching all the really spooky, creepy flicks here this Halloween season, you got to save some time and save some room for the big monsters too, right? So what Rich and I have decided to do, and we're going to expand on our triple feature today. We're each going to offer up 5 film recommendations, giant monster movies, all right, giant monster films, I should say. And I love the shirt. Look at that. He's got the big battle between Godzilla and Mechagodzilla. That's a great shirt.
Yep.
And you got
this is the first one, 1974, right?
Yeah, that is. Yeah, King Caesar down at the bottom. Where'd you get that shirt? That's awesome.
One of the conventions like Chiller or one of those things.
Oh, that is awesome. That's really
Thanks. Yeah.
It looks brand new. Very cool.
Yeah, I kept these pretty well.
So we got 10 films in total to get through here today. So I'll have Rich kick us off with one of his selections.
Okay. So I picked Gappa, the Triphibian monster. Do you remember this one?
I absolutely do. Seen it many times.
Yeah, this is a cool one. It's about the baby Gappa that they capture, and then the mother and the father come to find it. What year was this? Do you know? I don't even know what year this was.
It was either late 60s or early 70s, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, but it wasn't a Toho movie. It was another company.
Yeah, that was a British film company, I believe it did that.
It was. Yeah. Okay. So I thought this was always really cool because they're different. They're reptiles, but they're bird reptiles, and they can fly. They have feathers, but they're still reptiles, and they breathe fire. I thought the special effects in this thing was great at the time. It still looks good now. Some of the fire effects and a couple other things look pretty kind of cheesy, but when it comes to the miniatures and everything for this, I think it really works well with the scale of the people in the suit.
Yeah, it's amazing what Toho's doing, right? With the whole actors in suits playing monsters. I mean, it's like so many other film studios followed in their wake and did the same thing. I agree. I think they looked really cool, and it was just another really good movie because not a lot of the studios were doing stuff like that at the time. So
no, and I do remember it was played on TV also.
Yeah, I used to see that. You remember the old Channel 9, right? They used to show because you live in New York, right? Yeah, they used to show all those monster movies all the time on the weekends.
Yep. And this was one of the ones that came on with, if you remember, Youngary.
Yeah, absolutely. Monster from the Deep. Yep.
Yes, and the X from Outer Space, that other weird-looking, alien-looking creature with the antenna coming out of its head.
Yep. And do you remember Gorgo? Gorgo's another one.
Yes. Yep, another one that was part of these kind of other Godzilla outside of the Godzilla realm movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so this is one of my 5.
Good choice. All right, I'm gonna go with from 1966 Hammer Film Productions, 1 Million Years BC. And no, sorry, my monster choice is not Raquel Welch here. I decided to go with this one because I always kind of lump dinosaurs in with giant monsters, and I mean, if you're a young kid, obviously this came out the year I was born, but I watched this film all throughout the 70s when I was young, and man, it had Ray Harryhausen, dinosaurs all over the place, right? You got like Allosauruses and Brontosauruses and the pterodactyls,
Mhm.
Triceratops, giant turtles, giant spiders, giant iguanas. I mean, just all sorts of stuff. And you got, Raquel Welch, running around in a deerskin bikini the whole film, right?
Looking like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that fight with this, it's a Ceratosaurus, I'm pretty sure. It's like a T-Rex or an Allosaurus with the horn on its head. So yes, that fight with that was a Styracosaurus, right? Because I have the box here too.
Yeah, I
I
think it
think that
was
was a Styrac. No, Triceratops.
Triceratops and the Ceratosaurus. Yeah, that's exactly
Yeah, that fight, that stop motion, and when they're hiding behind the rocks, and then the camera's looking through the rocks, and you see them fighting everything. The scale and everything is so great. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't even feel like it was made so long ago. It's shot so well, and the movement, their range of motion is
Yeah.
great.
That was cutting edge filmmaking back at the time, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I always thought Ray Harryhausen a genius, and quite frankly, I'd rather watch Ray Harryhausen special effects than CGI any day of the week.
yeah. It's still a lot of it still holds up.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, those two dinosaurs in that fight we're talking about were also
Right.
used in the Valley of Gwangi, which is a later film that he did.
I didn't realize that they were. Where they use the same models and then they alter them.
Yep, same models. Yep, yeah, I was just reading that before.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting, right?
Because in the Valley of Gwangi was the Allosaurus and the Styracosaurus.
Triceratops, yeah, or whatever. Yeah, and then the giant, the elephant, and yeah, very
Yes.
cool.
Yeah.
But a good film. I mean,
Yeah.
considering there's no dialogue in
Yeah.
this entire film, it was a big seller. It made like, geez, I don't know, like 8 million at the box office over time for Hammer Film.
Uh-huh.
It was one of their bigger draws, and it spawned a whole bunch of kind of loose sequels. You had Prehistoric Women, When Dinosaurs Ruled the
Yeah.
Earth, and Creatures the World Forgot. So those were all the kind of prehistoric films that kind of came in the wake of this from Hammer. It was, they milked it
Yeah.
as long as they could, but those films didn't
Yeah.
have Raquel Welch.
No, that's right. And I guess you can call them giant monster movies. They weren't, they were big enough to destroy your house, but not big enough to destroy a building.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I kind of cheat a little bit with this one, but that's all right.
No, I think that I have I have something in there that's around that range
Cool. All right, what do you got?
of type of movie. All right, next going with Gamera versus Gaios. That's that vampire type of a pterodactyl.
Yep.
Not this one. This one was stupid. Virus.
Oh yeah, the kind of squid
That
creature.
one was, that was awful. But this one was really cool. It was a very dark and moody movie. It was shot a lot at night. So all the scenes that Gamera's mostly fighting this creature is in kind of darkness and everything. It really looks really cool. The lighting and just the way the monsters are moving, the way it's before the Gamera movies got really silly. Because they started getting really childish.
That was the second of the series, and that one was probably at least half serious, right? Where all the other ones just got really aimed at children.
Yeah.
And I think that that was probably his toughest test, right? Because that was a pretty crazy battle throughout that movie.
It was, and then is the other one. The other good one I like is Guiron, the thing with the knife on its head.
Oh yeah.
That was another really cool one. Definitely his top two foes, I would say.
I have all those figures of all those Gamera monsters.
Yeah.
Every one of them. Yeah, over on my shelf over there. Yeah, those are great.
Yep. So yeah, this is my 4.
That's
very, very cool.
Yeah, I dig the Gamera films. Yeah, and that's probably one of the best. All right, next up, I'm going to stick on the Ray Harryhausen theme. So here's a 2 for Blu-ray, but it's both of them are great here. But it's It Came from Beneath the Sea.
The octopus.
Right there, yeah, the giant octopus. So this one's great too, by the way. But we'll talk about that another time. This film was from 1955, Columbia Pictures. Directed by Robert Gordon. Again, special effects from Ray Harryhausen. So basically, the premise of this whole film is that the beginning of the movie, you got, like military teams and whatnot doing maneuvers and experiments out in the Pacific Ocean, dropping all sorts of depth charges and things like that and all sorts of stuff. And what they actually wind up doing is they drive this giant octopus, and this is a big damn octopus, out of his natural habitat. He makes his way to, obviously, to the United States, to the West Coast. and he winds up
Right.
showing up in San Francisco, wreaking all sorts of havoc. He winds up tearing down half of the Golden Gate Bridge, which is a
Yes.
totally cool scene,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
eventually they wind up driving him out of the city, and wind up, well, without giving the ending away, but mankind
Yeah.
prevails. But interestingly enough, this movie was not a big hit for Columbia Pictures, and
It wasn't.
no, it made very little money. I don't even think it made like $2 million. But I think it got kind of lost in the shuffle, because right around the mid 50s, every film studio was doing like these giant insect,
Yeah.
giant lizard, type of films.
Right.
And I think it just kind
Yeah.
of got lost in the shuffle. But they really didn't have a lot of budget. I kind of like the film. I think
Yeah.
it's cool that it's in black and white, which I think is pretty neat.
Hmm.
And but what's
Yeah.
interesting is like they didn't give Harryhausen enough of a budget, so much so that the octopus, if you watch it really carefully, only has six
Right.
tentacles. And if you
Right.
know anything about octopuses,
Yes.
they have eight, right? So
Yeah. I don't remember though. Do you ever see the octopus actually come out of the water enough that you should see eight of them? Or I always remember, I haven't watched it in a while. There's always part of it that's under the water, right?
yeah, the only scene where you really see him in its entirety is when he's hanging on the Golden Gate Bridge and tearing half of it down. That's the only shot. Otherwise, you
Yeah.
only see the head on occasion, or you see a couple tentacles coming out or just going up something or whatever. But that's the only scene where you see the entire octopus.
Right.
Yeah, there's only six of them there. So, but still
Yeah.
pretty cool if you
Cool.
love giant creatures. Man. I mean, it's just it's a fun
Yeah.
film. I love Harryhausen.
If you don't, oh yeah, he's amazing. If you don't think about it and you don't pay attention, you don't realize that they're not there, that they're missing.
Yeah, I never did until years later when I was reading, up on Harryhausen, his career and everything like that. Or maybe it was a documentary I watched, and I remember where he talks about it. And he's like, yeah, I only had so much of a budget to create six tentacles and not eight. He goes, and it drove me crazy
Right.
because I tried to do as best I could with what I had, right? But I think he did a damn good
Yeah.
job. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Next is Varan, or Varan, however you want to pronounce it. Or in Japanese, I think it's called Baron.
Aaron, yeah.
That's how they pronounce it
Varan,
there.
yeah.
But you never hear them say his name. I think it's a different pronunciation in the Japanese version of the movie. But in the American cut, and even in Destroy All Monsters, they don't even mention him by name. He just is there.
He just flies overhead, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then in the final battle, he comes down into the shot. And
Yeah,
that's it. It's like a real far away shot.
Here I am. I'm here, right?
Yeah, it's a shame. But I thought it was always an underappreciated monster. Walks on all fours and on its hind legs, and it can temporarily fly.
Yeah.
So it's got the membrane underneath its arms to its knees, like a flying lizard.
Yep.
So I always thought it was a unique creature. Thought the movie was cool. It's very moody, kind of like the first Godzilla. It came out after Rodan. I thought it was before. It came out after.
So technically, it was the fourth film out of
It was
the
Godzilla,
Raids again, Rodan, and that.
probably Varan, and then maybe the first Mothra might have been right after. Right around there, the first Mothra one.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, because I think the first Mothra was before King Kong versus Godzilla.
King Kong versus Godzilla. So if you watch this version of it that they have, it's got the Japanese one and the American one. But the American one's all cut up.
American
There's less
version,
Varan in the movie.
it's terrible. Yeah, the Japanese version is the one to watch.
But when he's on camera, and when not the close-ups, some of the close-ups are a little weird. They're a little awkward. But a lot of the faraway shots and everything, when he's crawling around on all fours, I think it looks great. Still looks really good.
Yeah.
So I think it's just one of those underappreciated monsters that needs more attention. And it's too bad that it didn't get a rebirth with the other Godzilla movies. He never came back. Just that brief cameo in Destroy All Monsters.
Yeah, which is a shame.
So hopefully for the future, because I think there's a very big underground cult following for this monster. So maybe he'll get another shot.
We'll see. You never know. Never
Do
say
you
never.
like this one? Are you familiar with it?
I do. I
You
own
like
it.
this movie?
Yeah, I have it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't know too many people that like this monster or know it. It's totally gone under the radar.
Yeah, yeah. Well, also too, that film was not available on VHS or DVD or anything for many, many years.
Right.
And so
Right.
I originally bought like a bootleg copy of it like years ago.
Yeah.
I've since gotten like an original, whatever it is,
Yeah.
I have on my shelf over here. But yeah, I dig it. He's a cool looking creature too. I like it.
Mhm.
All right, we're going to stick
Yeah.
on Toho for my next pick. I'm going to go with
Cool.
1955's Godzilla Raids again.
One of my favorite monsters in there, as you saw in my display, my little diorama there.
That's right. It's Anguirus. So this is
Yeah.
the direct sequel to the original Godzilla film, or Gojira. First Godzilla film to have him battling another creature. And so
Right.
kind of the way they kickstart this whole film, it's almost like, he's just another Godzilla who shows up, right? The original was killed,
Right.
and then they happen to discover they're on an island somewhere, and there is Godzilla and Anguirus battling it out to the death, and they're like, "Oh my God, it's another Godzilla!" Right? And they eventually, of course, make their way to Tokyo, to Japan, and they fight there, and eventually, Godzilla wins this battle here. But the end of the film is actually pretty cool, because then all of a sudden they're like in this like snow-capped island, right?
Yeah.
And they actually and that whole like final scene is really weird, because they're like trying to trap him in the ice, and then the next film in the series obviously is King Kong versus Godzilla, and if you remember in that film, Godzilla comes out of the ice, so they actually don't kill him here. But the big subplot in this whole film is the two lovers, right? He's the pilot, and she's working back at the base on the communications and all this kind of stuff, and he wants, well, I don't want to give everything away, but this film is like I don't think they gave this the budget that the first film had, and I think what's missing in this movie is that the soundtrack. It's like the soundtrack in the first Godzilla movie makes the movie, and this is really lacking in any kind of music or anything like that.
Yeah, and I think the monster battles too are they're a little herky jerky the way they move.
Yeah, because they did. Part of them were filmed with the guys in the suits, and the other part were filmed with the little maquette puppets.
Yeah.
So a lot of like the faraway shots you see, and they did that in King Kong versus Godzilla too. When you see the faraway shots of the monsters battling up over the mountains, it's just like this whole kind of, which didn't help matters. But yeah, this is kind of like the forgotten film, I think, in the Godzilla catalog, and I've always done it. Also titled Gigantus the Fire Monster in I think that was the Japanese.
Yeah, and it's weird because Gigantus is Godzilla, so why not just call it Godzilla the Fire Monster or something else, or Godzilla versus Anguirus? I don't know. It's strange.
Yeah, very odd.
But Anguirus looks weird in that too. Like his shell is like a lot longer, and it's not like attached to its back like a shell. It like moves sometimes, if you notice the suit.
Yeah, he's bigger and longer, I think, and he goes upright quite a bit in this film, which is kind of weird. But I dig it. I think it's a cool film, and I'm sure a lot of people haven't seen it.
Yeah. Okay.
Back to you.
Number 2, you just mentioned it. King Kong vs. Godzilla.
A classic.
It is. I remember, watching this every Thanksgiving day that weekend. They would have like the monster marathon on TV.
You watch it every year.
This is such a. What's that?
You watch it every year, right?
Yeah. But it's such a great battle, between the two of them. It's such a great battle, though, throughout the whole movie. Whenever they're on camera, they're just slugging it out.
Yeah.
So I hope, the new one that they're doing next year lives up to what this was. Because, even though Kong looks horrendous, what a terrible suit that is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's awful. That's just awful. You'd think they would try and get something close to the American one, to try and make it look like an ape,
Yeah.
But this was just, it looks like one of the Gargantuas, but not as good as one of the Gargantuas.
Gargantuas are much better. Well, you know what? At least it wasn't as bad as his suit in King Kong Escapes. That's even worse.
Oh, yeah, I know. So other than that, though, it's really fun. all the fighting, even the octopus when Kong fights the octopus in this,
Yeah.
even that sequence works really well.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
this is just a classic. I have to always go back to this one.
Yep. Yep. And contrary to rumor, folks, there is no alternate Japanese ending.
No, there's no change to it. I think it's just your perspective, because who comes out of the water at the end?
Yeah.
Who you think wins?
Yeah, and quite frankly,
Right?
Godzilla can stay underwater for a long ass time. So just because he doesn't come out at the end doesn't mean he lost the battle, right? Just King Kong just goes away. So yeah, that's a great one. I dig it. I've probably seen that film 50 times, maybe more. I don't know. Yeah, it's great. All right. So you mentioned War of the Gargantuas before. That's my next choice. Let's see if we can get a shot.
Yeah, it's so good.
So this is a double feature
DVD
with Rodan and War of the Gargantuas. So
yep.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see because I'm in the dark here. But
yeah, I can see it now. Yeah.
But this was released in 1966, another Toho production. It's basically kind of like a loose sequel to Frankenstein Conquers the World. So if anybody has not seen Frankenstein Conquers the World, so that's a film about scientists find this like little young kid who's kind of deformed and whatnot. And he, I guess, has been subjected to some kind of radiation or something. And he winds up growing and growing and growing into this giant, mutant looking creature, right?
Yeah.
And he winds up fighting the creature Baragon, who we talked about before. And at the end, after a big battle with Baragon, he kind of sinks into this like the ground surrounding a volcano, right? And you're like, okay, I guess they're both dead, and so on and so forth. But then kind of the storyline for this is that you have these two giant hairy creatures, which kind of look like sort of like weird King Kongish, but they look more man-like than ape-like. And the story they're trying to tell you here is that one of these Gargantuas is related to the Frankenstein creature from the first, or is the Frankenstein creature from the first. It's kind of like dicey, right? The whole story. It's like they never really explain it. But they do these like flashback scenes in the film that lead you to believe that it might be the same creature, right? But now they find out he's alive. But one of these Gargantuas is brown, and the other one's got kind of like a greenish blue tint. That's how you tell them apart. And one is good and one is bad, right? So they're drawn to each other because they're the same species, but then the good one discovers that the bad one is like a real bad seed, and all he wants to do is destroy things and kill people and all that kind of stuff. So they wind up going to battle, like almost doing the whole film, right?
It's great. The fights are awesome.
Yeah. It's definitely, when it comes to like the Toho miniatures and the sets and like action, it's relentless. The whole movie is, and that's why this has always been one of my favorite out of all the Toho films, even including some of the Godzilla movies, because it's like I wish they would have done more. It's just it's kind of like an outlier in all of their films with the giant monsters, but I think it works so well. And it's a shame we never saw any of either one of these two again. And I thought the costumes were great.
I agree.
Right? I mean, everything about this, it's just a really, really good, fun movie. And if you love all out like monster slugfest, it doesn't get any better.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. All right. My fifth one, going with a Harryhausen movie, Beast from 20,000 Fathoms.
Yeah.
I think this kind of explains why Anguirus and Varan and Baragon are my favorites. Because this is another one that walks on all fours.
Yep.
I never really thought of the connection until I was doing this today. Because this is probably one of the originals that I saw that got me into giant monster movies. Because this came out before Godzilla.
Yeah.
I think it was like a year or two before.
It was right before. Yeah. That was Harryhausen's first big break.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, he worked on Mighty Joe Young. He helped out Willis O'Brien, but apparently Willis O'Brien was pretty sick during the filming of that. So they say that Harryhausen did most of the special effects, but this was the first big solo film for Harryhausen. It was that, and then It Came From Beneath the Sea was next. But that was his first big film.
This was, the creature looks great, moves great, the sets are great. It just works. It works all around as a giant monster movie. And it's not too big of a monster either. Like we were saying, it's not like, we're not talking like Godzilla size in those. These are when they were still like a little bit bigger than dinosaurs, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they created a Redosaurus. I think they called that creature there.
Brontosaurus, yes.
Yeah. And I wonder too,
Yeah.
and obviously you have, but if you follow like all of the creatures that Harryhausen created over the years, I wonder if his inspiration for the dragon from Seventh Voyage of Sinbad came from that particular, from the Redosaurus from Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. Kind of
similar design. Yeah. I never connected to him. That's another great creature, that dragon.
Yeah. Those Sinbad movies.
But yeah, this is one of those classics that just started, one of the starters of the whole genre.
Yep.
So this is a great starting point for people if you want to see where the giant monster movie came from, even before Godzilla.
Yep. And that was inspired from a short story by Ray Bradbury, who was buddies with Ray Harryhausen.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember that. And they did a few Ray Bradbury stories with Harryhausen doing special effects.
Yep. Yeah, what was the flying saucer one? That was also another one.
It's escaping me right now. I know what you're talking about.
It's
not War of the Worlds. It's not War of the Worlds. It's something else.
Earth versus the Flying Saucers, maybe, I think.
Earth versus the Flying Saucer. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
And then I think also First Man on the Moon. Was that Bradbury? Or was that H.G. Wells? I don't remember.
Might have been H.G. Wells.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good choice. Yeah, I
remember you telling me this is one of your favorites too, right? You talked about this previously.
I love that film. I'm a big fan of Beast. Yeah. I adore the Harryhausen films. I just absolutely do.
Yes.
There's just, for me, it's like when you talk about like favorite like film clusters, I don't know, or whatever you want to call it. There's the Godzilla films, the Toho movies. There's the Universal horror films. There's the Ray Harryhausen films, and there's the Hammer films. Yeah. Those are like, great
Clash
stuff.
of the Titans, Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger. It's just
Jason the Argonauts. Yeah. 20 Million Miles to Earth. Yeah, it's just, classic stuff.
Yeah. Can't go wrong with it. The monsters, creatures, everything looked so cool.
Yep. All right, so our my last pick for today. I love this film. So it's Godzilla versus Destroyer, which is
you took one of the modern ones.
Yes, I decided to throw a modern one in here. So this is the
that's cool.
How do you say it? The Heisei series. Is that how they say it?
Heisei, yeah,
Heisei.
Yeah.
So for those of you who wonder what the hell we're talking about, so when you study the films, the Godzilla films from Toho, they have different series.
Right.
So the first series is called the Showa film series, and that's basically, and it has to do with an era in the history of Japan. So that's 1954 to 75. So all the old original films up until, trying to think what the last one was that Terror of Mechagodzilla? Was that
Terror of Mechagodzilla? Yeah.
Yes, I think that was the last one in the Showa series. So from the original
75. Yeah. 1975. Yep.
So it's basically 21 years from the first Godzilla all the way to Terror of Mechagodzilla. That's the Showa series. And then starting in 1984 with what was the name?
Godzilla, the title called Godzilla Return, or the Return of Godzilla, but it was called Godzilla 1984 or 1985.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
so that's
depending when it came out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think because that was released in the theaters here in the States. I think it came out in Japan a little bit before. But that's the Heisei series. And that's 1984 to 1995. And then they have another one after that. But they actually squeeze quite a lot of films in the Heisei series. And they are much bigger budgeted, much more modern film techniques. The costumes are really well done. The rubber suits.
Yeah, just the monster suits. Yeah, the monster suits look good.
Really good, and introduced a lot of new bad monsters, right? So this particular one, you've got a creature called a Destroyer. You think they call him Destroyer, but the way it's spelled is Destroyah. This is actually the 22nd film in the series, in the entire series. Pretty noteworthy because you got Godzilla Jr. in this, son of Godzilla, who doesn't look anything like what we remember from the Showa series, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But this is another film.
He looks like a dinosaur now, like he should.
Exactly. And so he's helping out his dad quite a bit here. The interesting
Yeah,
subplot in this film is that, well, you got the destroyer creature, which is coming in, wreaking havoc all over everything, and out to
right.
obviously kill Godzilla and his son. But
Yeah,
they marketed this film as the death of Godzilla. So
right.
basically, all the nuclear um, elements that have been built up within his body all these years are hitting like a max, like boiling point. So throughout a
Yes.
good chunk of this film, he is actually, and you can kind of, if you can see it here on the cover, he's actually, his whole body is burning up. So
Yeah,
at the climactic battle, after, well, I won't give the whole film away, but
yeah,
he basically has a nuclear meltdown, is what happens.
right.
So, and I remember the first time watching this movie, I was like really sad because I'm like, Godzilla is like
Yeah.
one of my favorite, film characters of
Yep.
all time. And I'm like, no, you can't
Yeah.
kill him off. And thankfully, that obviously we know that's not the case, but great battles in this film. Great battles. The destroyer creature looks
Yes.
absolutely sick. In fact,
Yeah.
I have his action figure over here as well. And just one of my favorites of the latter period of
Yeah, it's one of mine. One of mine too.
yeah,
And
it's
the one moment, if you haven't seen it, is great where it's between Godzilla and Destroyer and his son. I don't want to tell everybody what happens, but you know that moment I'm talking about.
yeah,
And you kind of feel a little sad at that moment
yeah.
because of what's happening. But that interaction between the three of them, it's definitely like a father-son moment, but with
Yeah.
monsters.
And really well done. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, totally. Yeah, I think they purposefully tried in that film to pull the heartstrings of every longtime Godzilla fan who just loves these monsters. And yeah, you didn't want to see it, but yeah, it got me. I know the first time I watched it, I was like, oh man, it's like I'm gonna tear up a little bit here. I know it's only a movie, but
Yeah.
man, yeah,
Yeah. Right. But it's not corny like, like a Son of Godzilla or Revenge of Godzilla, like the 70s and 60s movies. It doesn't get childish like that.
yeah, exactly. So very cool. Well, this was fun.
Yeah, definitely. Now hopefully people will go out and rediscover some of these, you know?
Yeah, like I said, if you've seen them, but maybe not in a long time, go out and watch them again. Now's the perfect time. And if you haven't seen any of these, I
Yes.
highly recommend every single one of them because
Give my give my boy some love so he can come back to the Toho universe. He needs the most help. I think he needs like a Kickstarter or a GoFundMe program or something. Save Varan, someone.
yeah, and make sure you watch the Japanese version of that. Don't waste your time
Yes.
with the cut up American Abomination because that's no good. I mean, it's the same thing like with the original Godzilla film. I mean, the
Right.
Japanese version is so much better than
Yes.
the cut up and Raymond
Mhm.
Burrized American version.
I think it's like 20 minutes, even shorter. It's like maybe 65 minutes for the American cut, and the Japanese is around 80, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
So the movies are even shorter when you watch the American cuts.
Yeah, and the American cut of Varan is like the whole subplot. It's all about the romance between the two.
Yeah,
It's like who cares, right? And
I
they cut
know.
out so much of the great monster destruction and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, oh man, come on.
Yeah,
Like the
that's true.
Japanese version of scenes in the jungle. When they first discover him and stuff. It's amazing,
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. And the brief shot of him flying, not the greatest, but just to see that this is one of those creatures in the universe that can do that
Yeah,
was different too.
yep,
Another missed opportunity to incorporate him into other movies.
yeah. I agree. Well, good
Yeah.
choice. Good choice today, Rich.
Thanks. Same with
Good
you.
choice. So there you have it, everybody. Some additional films for you to check out here this Halloween. Today is all about giant monsters. Let us know what you think of some of these films,
Here's
as well as
the whole
what some
crew.
of your favorites are. There you look at that. Destroy All Monsters. There you go.
Slow monsters. That's actually got in the foreground. I don't know if you could see them. It's got Varan, Baragon, Anguirus, and Gorosaurus all together. That's such a great still, I think.
Very cool. Is that the spider with Spiga? Is that him in the background or Kamaculus?
Munga, yeah, in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like one of those shots that should have been in the movie and it wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Crazy.
Yep.
Great
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, everybody. So let us know what some of your favorite monster films are. So in the comments below. So we'll see you
Yeah.
next time here on the Monsters Den. Also visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. For Rich Catino, I am Pete Pardo. We'll see
Thanks
you
again
again
for having me.
if you dare.